Hi Chris, how are you?
Good afternoon, Rod. Yeah, I'm well. Here we are, and what's today? It's the 22nd of June. I was just checking my watch then, and we're at episode 178, and you're not in your usual location.
No, I'm not. I'm a remote correspondent this week. I'm in a hotel in Helsinki, so I'm in Finland.
Lovely. I know I was in Finland at Christmas just before Christmas for a few days, and it was amazing. What a wonderful country.
It's a nice place, nice people. The food's pretty good, the drink's pretty good. I have no complaints so far, and it is absolutely stunningly beautiful. Even just flying into Helsinki airport with all the islands and the lakes, and it's just gorgeous.
It's even covered in snow when I went. It's a really beautiful place. So I'm a little bit jealous because I'm here in the Cotswolds. It's been swelteringly hot, and today's the first day we've had a break, I think, in the heat.
Well, it was extremely rainy here yesterday. Extremely. I went out for a walk around just after the conference I'm at, and I got absolutely soaked. So, interesting. And today, after the conference, I went for a little tour around the harbour on a boat, which goes through some of the islands and things in Helsinki. And it is a glorious place, but they've got 5 icebreakers just parked up in the harbour, just to keep the ports of Finland free, so people can come and go in the winter. So that shows how cold it gets up here.
Yeah, it's gonna be quite a different look, I guess, and feel to what you're seeing today. Fantastic. Yeah, get into the show.
Yeah, let's do it. So straight into follow up. And if I can get to app, and I'll apologise, I'm obviously not in my normal setup, so any glitches, hitches, the fact you're getting a podcast at all is frankly remarkable. So let's crack on.
Okay, let's do it.
So first up, and this is just follow up on what we've been talking about quite a lot certainly this year and the end of last year, is that Apple and Meta have been fined according to the DMA, but perhaps slightly surprisingly is that after that initial fine, which in Apple's case is 500 million euros, they're not going to face a follow-up fine just for a little bit while the EU decide what's happening in the wake of tariffs, Trump, how well Apple and Meta have responded to this. I think this is quite interesting.
I think it is interesting, but I'm a little disappointed that they're not getting the fine straight away. Like, come on, EU, you've threatened it, do it.
So they're getting the fine. They're getting the fine. They're just not getting another one because
that's what I mean, though. But they should be getting another one. They should just keep billing them until it gets sorted.
Yeah, I gotta say, I agree with you. I think this is having an impact on Apple. I think all the stuff that slightly has happened over, WWDC and the betas we've been seeing and all the rest of it, and what's available in and out of Europe and stuff that's going on, it's having an impact on them.
Yeah, no, it is. And if they want it to continue to have an impact, they need to keep the threat real by following it through. And I'm just worried if they don't see it through, it's going to be a bit anticlimactic.
I can understand their hesitation. I mean, they face enough ire from Trump, and let's face it, he's lobbing various missiles around the world at the moment. He's a slightly loose cannon, isn't he? They don't want to raise even more ire in the United States, even though I don't think Apple is his favourite company at the moment.
No, that is true, and we've got a story about a phone coming up, haven't we? So we can maybe cover that then.
Maybe we can cover that then. Should we move on to the next story then?
Yep.
So this popped up this week. I think it was on Friday actually is when I saw it, Thursday. Apple Intelligence apparently went down on iOS 26 and in all the other betas as well. So it seemed to be down for a little bit and then back up again, and this seemed to be quite a big headline, which surprised me because it's a beta. Is it any wonder it goes down?
I'm not surprised it's down. I don't think it should be that newsworthy. And sometimes I wonder whether these things go down ahead of the next release that's about to drop. There should be an update in the next week for the people on the beta. And sometimes I wonder, are they, doing an upgrade ready for the release to go out? Because there might be some back-end stuff that's required for that. So that's why I'm not that surprised. I really don't think this is a big issue.
I agree. We've got stories later on about some of the Apple Intelligence stuff that actually is in the betas and is actually useful to use, the on-machine stuff. I find it that hard to get quite excited about a lot of the Apple Intelligence stuff because it is so minor.
I think it's minor and it's had not a great birth, so I think it's put a lot of people off.
Yeah, I'd go with that. Sticking with Apple in our next story, and you and I both may feel a little sad about this one. Apparently, unbeknownst to any of us, firewire, both 400 and 800, has been dropped as of the 26 as beta 1. Oh,
a little bit, but given they're dropping Intel next month, or next year, sorry, I'm not that surprised. It is a bit sad, but I'm not that surprised that it feels like where they want to get next year is they're going to have all the legacy cruft taken out of the OS. That's what it feels like. So I wasn't that surprised this is going.
Cruft is one thing. I mean, firewire is a communication standard for those that are old enough to, and not old enough to remember it being a thing. It used to, the very first iPod came with Firewire 400, was its main connection methodology between the Mac. And I bought a camcorder, back when they were called camcorders, because it had a Firewire port on it and could be controlled by iMovie. Do you remember those days?
I remember those days. They were good days. And Firewire was an amazing standard. It just wasn't widely adopted. That was the problem. It was very Mac-centric with occasional Windows people using it.
Yeah, Sony kind of went all in it as well. I think they called it iLink, I want to say, for the same sort of reasons that Apple did, so you could control media devices and not just speed. So Firewire 400 was the first thing. It was, I mean, at the time, USB was not a lot, 5 megabytes per second or something ridiculously slow.
It was like 10 or 12, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that. And USB 2 made it a lot faster. And then Firewire 400, as it said, was 400 megabits per second. Then 800 was twice that again. I mean, USB-C and Thunderbolt have far supplanted this. But I suspect it's probably still the old Firewire device in people's cupboards. Someday they're going to want to pull a camera or a video recorder of some sort out and want to transfer that media, and it's not going to be possible.
I imagine there'll be somebody with a third-party cable that will do what you need. It'll have Firewire on one end, USB-C on the other, and it will have some chip in the middle to do what needs to be done.
A daisy chain of cables and adapters and things.
But when did you last use 400 or 800?
I went through my camera and I pulled all my recordings off about 6 years ago, something like that, I think.
Okay, so a bit more recent than me, but you're not going to do it again, really, are you?
I think what I did was I was looking at one of the last MacBook Pros I had that supported it. I thought, that port's going away. I may as well do this while I still can, and the camera still works. So I made that. In fact, one of the things I pulled off there was your wedding.
Wow, have you still got all that?
Yeah.
Oh, then I should get a copy of that off you.
Didn't I do you a copy back in the day?
I know, but we should probably just take a copy just to be on the safe side. That would be amazing. And score me some brownie points.
I'll see if I can look it out.
It'd be great. It'd be one of those things I'd sit down with the kids and watch. Because
unedited video footage.
They would love it. And I have to explain to them why it's not the quality that their iPhones deliver them instantly now. Going back though to the story. So Firewire 400, 800's going away. I wonder when Thunderbolt 1, 2, 3 will go away, because if you remember, that was for the people on the channel, I'm trying to do the connector, the flat top down the side, then it's angled in, and then a flat, smaller flat bottom. That's not been on Macs for a long time. So I've got to think, I wonder whether that would go as well at some point.
So that connector was the same shape as Mini DisplayPort, as I recall.
Smaller.
No, it wasn't. It was Mini DisplayPort was the same
thing.
Sorry,
I was thinking DisplayPort. You're correct.
Yep. Mini DisplayPort.
So I wonder whether that as a technology will go away at some point when they stop supporting it.
Possibly. I mean, the fact that it's USB based, or at least there's a USB standard in there as well, it's backwards compatible with, probably USB 3 or something like that. I don't know. It was quite quick. It may last longer because people have got those kind of connections. I still see Dell monitors with DisplayPort and Mini DisplayPort on them.
Wow, okay. I see very little with Mini DisplayPort. But in some ways, it's a bit sad. But I'm kind of for it. If it means that they're going to remove some cruft and it's going to be better longer term, I'm all right with it.
You're all for getting rid of the cruft, but Microsoft has built a whole career out of keeping the cruft in. Come on.
I know. I still can't believe on my Windows 11 PC I get Device Manager.
Have you got a Windows 11 PC? Of course you do, for gaming.
For a bit of gaming.
Moving on.
All it has on it, just for clarity, is Steam, Battle.net, and I think that's it. That's really what it's got on it, and GOG, so we can play some retro stuff. And you literally boot it up, it's just got those icons on the bottom, and nothing else, because I don't need anything else.
Fair enough. Moving on, and I thought this was quite interesting. It's actually an unusual link for us. It's to the Electronic Frontier Foundation. So we've talked about intuitification on this podcast, which was coined by Cory Doctorow, who used to be sort of the lead advocacy person for the EFF. And if you ever watched the IT Crowd or one of those things, you'll see lots of EFF stickers in the background. They fight for digital freedom. It's kind of their thing. But I just thought this was interesting that Apple released a statement to the Australian government basically saying that Australians are too stupid, in the headline of the article from the EFF, to be responsible for their own apps, and that's why you need an app store, and that's why you shouldn't be allowed to sideload like those idiots in Europe, because you're going to lose stuff and you're going to get viruses and your security is at risk. That's the crux of this article.
It's pretty much what Apple have said to everybody, though, isn't it? That you're too stupid, you need to do what we tell you.
Yeah, and we need to keep that lovely, services money come rolling in, don't we?
I really wish Apple would stop banging on about this and carry on doing more to make sure the platform's safe and secure. That's what they now need, is somebody to point out that. Well, Apple, if you did a really good job, sideloading wouldn't be a problem, because it's all sandbox. You're the gatekeeper. Your OS is amazing. You shouldn't be threatened by this.
Yeah, I mean, it's nonsense, because as we've repeatedly said on this podcast, Macs have had sideloading, or just loading as we used to call it, of software on computers for a very long time. And yes, viruses are a thing, but sensible sandboxing, digital signing, all that kind of stuff that you can do to stop it happening so explicitly. Come on, just let it happen, Apple.
Yep, we're there, aren't we? I want, and I think the rest of the world want, what the EU have got. Apple need to wake up and realise this.
It's all going to happen at once. I mean, I think the dominoes will begin to fall pretty quickly here.
Hopefully.
I guess we'll see. As we said at the top of the show, the EU are pushing back on it a bit anyway, so,
Yeah, that's true.
How is iPad OS 26 working out for you?
So, as we discussed before, I'm not currently employed, so I am using my iPad less than I have been, but I've purposely actually loaded it up and gone and used it a little bit to try out some of iPad OS 26, and I think Apple have got it right. I really do. It's a shame it's taken them so long, but actually adopting large chunks of the Mac and the refinements they've made, I think are really good. Obviously, it's beta 1, it's a bit buggy, there's a bit too much happening when you move windows around, everything's jumping around a little bit, but that will calm down. I think it's really good.
So that seems to be the sort of overall impression, and we've talked before on this podcast about Steve Troughton-Smith and his, initially a massive Apple not hacker, but he liked to hack on Apple products. Obviously a fan, has a number of apps in the App Store, including the wonderful Broadcasts and Pastel. Good developer, pulled a lot of the early secrets and strings out of the betas a few years ago. So he's been very negative about iPad OS, as has Federico Viticci. Both of them moved to a largely iPad-based lifestyle or development environment, and then had to pull back from it because of all the limitations. And Steve has come out saying, I've been using iPad OS 26 in the external display for a bit, and I have some strong feelings. It does need tweaks for sure, but not a lot of them. It's the closest the platform has ever felt to being a real computer. I would even go so far as to say the onus has now shifted back onto app developers to actually build the apps to make use of all. And I think that's very fair.
I think it's a really good statement. I think it is really good from what I've seen. It does make me wish I had the slightly bigger iPad. It feels a little cramped at the moment on the 11-inch, but I'm hoping it will calm down. But I think what they've done, it feels way more intuitive to use, and it works for both touch and mouse. I think it's really cool, and even just changing the pointer to make it more precise makes a lot of sense. Adopting the traffic lights from macOS makes sense. I think they've done it a really good way. It now feels like, well, actually, if I did have an iPhone that was foldable, it probably wouldn't get rid of the iPad, because what they would do is do on the iPad what they've done before, have the simpler form of multitasking, I think, and then you'd get a full-on iPad to do this new form of multitasking they brought to all the iPad models, which I think is massive. There's obviously been a lot of engineering going, and it does feel like the Mac and the iPad are sharing more and more as time's progressed.
I kind of want to pull you up a little bit on that. I agree with most of what you said. I don't think this is multitasking. I think this is windowing, and I think they're different things. You could have lots of windows running the same thing, and there's a certain amount of multitasking going on in the background. We talked before about how many windows you can have before they actually just become frozen images of what they would actually be. And I suspect what I can do on this M1 iPad Pro is different to what you can do if you go out and buy the cheapest possible iPad that you can now. So I think that there is windowing, and it's good. It's not perfect, for lots of reasons. Traffic lights are good. I think I said in the last podcast, I think they should be permanent.
I completely agree with you there.
So there's lots of things can be tweaked, but I think this is a very solid step on the road to an actually useful iPad, and that's a huge thing that should be celebrated.
100%. And where we should be with the iPad now is it should be the computer most people went out and bought that weren't technically minded, that wanted just something that would allow them to do all their online banking, go to websites, do email, do some apps. The iPad should have had that spot, but it hasn't had that spot because it hasn't quite been capable enough. And this is the bit that I think gets it over the line.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, Steve's sort of negative points about this is it needs a clamshell mode. I haven't tried this connected to a screen yet, but I'm surprised it doesn't. I guess you need the screen, but
It's the same it's always been. You just need the iPad screen on. I don't know why they haven't done that. It's an odd one to me.
a persistent menu bar, 100% agree. My use of it needs to be there.
Even just make it a setting. Always show the menu bar. They've got one to always show the dock. Why wouldn't you have always show the menu bar?
Yeah, and first-party apps like Outwork and Final Cut need widescreen layouts. And again, I think he's bang on.
I kind of agree with that because often when you're in the mode and you want the left or the right column to appear where you've got formatting tools, as soon as you move away, they disappear. Where it's like, well, actually, I want those to persist. And I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good list. I would add to that a little more multitasking because we know the processors are capable of it. I should be able to do 3 or 4 things. I should be able to export my DaVinci Resolve. I should be able to fire up a Word document or a Pages document and get on and do that, and then maybe start editing a podcast while I'm at it. There should be more multitasking. I can almost launch infinite apps on my Mac and set it doing things and leave them in the background. I don't need to leave a window in the foreground to be confident that something's happening. And the chip isn't that different from the one in the iPad. So that, for me, would be the final piece of the puzzle.
Yep, no, I'd agree with that. I think they've made a massive leap forward.
Yep,
massive.
Good.
It'd be interesting to see what the M5 iPad's going to look like later in the year.
Somebody that hasn't made a massive leap forward, unfortunately, is Mozilla. And we've got a couple of stories, one after the other, and we'll treat them kind of as one. There was a story in the Register earlier this week on Tuesday the 17th about how Firefox is dead to him. Or dead to them, I should say, just because of all the changes, particularly around the changes in privacy policy, various bits and pieces that they're doing, killing off Pocket, killing off a few of their other sort of products in the background. It's kind of become the straw that's broken the camel's back for him, I think, with all these changes over time, and we'll talk about the next one in a minute. But it's sad to watch, isn't it?
It is. It feels like Firefox should have come out earlier in the year and gone, here's our strategy, our manifesto for the next 18, 24 months, but they haven't really done that. They've just slowly done things, and it doesn't feel very coherent. And a lot of things they've done are eroding what people expect Mozilla to do with Firefox.
It's amazing because it is an open source browser in air quotes, in the same way that Chrome can be de-googled and you get Chromium, the basic browser. I think we need to get what we've talked repeatedly. Chrome needs competition, and it's got Safari, which is market share because it's embedded on devices, let's face it.
It's the easy option for a lot of people, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know many people would choose Safari if it didn't actually come with the device. I think most people ask for Chrome because that's just what they're used to.
Definitely on Windows, everybody asks for Chrome, don't they?
Yeah, and I run more Linux than you do. And Firefox is the default on most browsers, on most distros. So they in some cases have an embedded presence, but apparently it's only about 3%, less than 3% of the browser market now. So they do need to make an impact on their users, and they do need to keep the business going, particularly as the money from Google's probably going to go away. But they seem to be going entirely the wrong direction and annoying the user base.
Yeah, and I would agree with this. So I've started using Firefox, and I think I'm going to bounce away from it because I'm not enjoying it as much as I thought I would.
I like the browser a lot, but then I had the straw that broke the camel's back for me, because you'll notice where I'm on Safari this issue of the podcast, and it was this. This was a Windows report that came up with it, that Perplexity, which is an AI company, an LLM company, popped up as my default search option one day when I launched the updated version of Firefox. I don't want that. I don't want that pushed to my face, thank you very much.
That's what's made me question my life choices at the moment. That exact same thing. It popped up and I was like, why is that here? I don't want that.
Yeah. It's disgusting behaviour, really. That maybe if they pushed you to a blog post to read about it and the reason they're doing this is, I don't know, because all the sweet Google money's going away, and Perplexity are going to give them more, and they're going to be able to maintain the browser, and you don't have to use it, and blah blah blah. But they didn't. It just went, use Perplexity, and I was like, I don't want that, thank you.
Yeah, I don't think like I said, I don't think the way they're cobbing it and going about anything has been terribly good this year.
It's a very Microsoft-like move to just stick it in your face and say this is the way that it's going to go.
Agreed. Which is if you've sought Firefox out,
yep,
you're generally somebody that's gone to the extra effort, and I think they need to treat their user base differently.
I would 100% agree, and let's face it, maybe the next step in this particular thing is that they do the same as Microsoft does, and they do just make it default for everybody because that's what they want, and that would be wrong for lots of reasons.
Agreed.
Yeah, speaking of wrong for lots of reasons, or maybe it isn't, I don't know. OpenAI close bedfellows with Microsoft, I think it's fair to say.
Close. Close.
Well, they were close. Copilot was originally based on it, effectively, yes?
Yeah, it feels like they want to go through some form of separation.
Well, as with maybe some marriages, all marriages, you have a little bit of trouble from time to time, I think it's fair to say. In many cases, that leads to divorce, and that appears to be what's happening here.
Yeah, it does feel like it. So OpenAI and Microsoft are in bed. Microsoft gave OpenAI $1 billion to get going, and have invested more. They've got people on the board, and most of Copilot is, some form of OpenAI there in the background. It's really jump-started them, and now it feels like OpenAI, which I'm not surprised by. I think they got in bed with Microsoft to get them up and going, and now they realise maybe we don't need you anymore. We can do this on our own, kind of thing. And they now want to go through that separation, please. So they're apparently going to push the nuclear option, as your article says, and raise an antitrust complaint against Microsoft.
Yeah, I mean, I got to think what they're doing here is they're going to do an IPO, aren't they? They want to float themselves in the stock market. They think, this is the next wave of computing that's going to come next. I got to say, bits of this feel a bit like the dot-com bubble to me. It's all beginning to feel a bit Web 2.0 to me.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So this is the first sign of this, that a company like OpenAI now think they're probably bigger and have, in their minds, better brand recognition than Microsoft. Therefore, they want to sort of step away from them. I got to say, I watched a little video earlier of how many options there are to get Copilot in Windows. Even in Excel now, if you hover over an Excel cell, there's a little Copilot logo pops up in the bottom right-hand corner, or top right-hand corner, obscuring your view of your cell and your content. As well as the Copilot button in the ribbon bar, as well as the Copilot button in the right-click menu, and as well as the Copilot button if you've got a Copilot Windows PC on your keyboard.
And then in your taskbar, my son, just as we came away, he showed me, I was going to say Internet Explorer, but it's not that, it's in Edge. He was like, there's Copilot in Edge now, Dad. And I was like, okay, they literally are putting it everywhere. So I'm not surprised by this at all. I think OpenAI does have the branding now, especially with ChatGPT. That is the de facto thing, I'm going to say thing, that my family, that lots of people use because it's got such a strong name. So I'm not surprised by this.
Yeah, it's ChatGPT is the Xerox of LLMs, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's that de facto name. It's like a Band-Aid, isn't it? It's what, you say a Band-Aid, but you just mean any old plaster will do. Whereas ChatGPT is the same for AI.
It's a Hoover. It's the Hoover and that's an even better allegory, I think. Moving on, and just to finish, close out follow-up with often where we started with this follow-up section. The regulator in the Netherlands is upholding the case against Apple's App Store, and this is where it all started for us, I think, when we were talking about Dutch dating apps being fined by the regulator in Holland, and that's still being upheld. So sorry, Apple, in some parts of the EU, you are going to have to pay those fines.
Good. That's what I'm going to say to you. I think that is good. They should be paying those fines. Come on, fine them.
I can only agree. I think that's it for follow-up. Have you got anything else for us?
No, I don't think so.
Let's slide into the news' DMs then. First up, the biggest leak ever seems to have happened on the 21st of June, or at least was investigated on the 21st of June. This is by a security website of researchers there, and there's over 16 billion exposed login credentials from various info-stealing things. So this is all the hacks that have happened over time, I think, being conglomerated into one thing. This is the largest data breach in history, with 16 billion login credentials. There are 30 different databases involved in this, from big companies like Apple and all the rest of it. It's recent. It's not just old breaches. There's new stuff in this as well. So, for example, I suspect there's probably information from Marks and Spencer's and the Co-op and Harrods and things like that in here too. But yeah, this is a big deal.
Sorry, did you say 16 billion?
I said billion with a B.
It's a big number, isn't it?
It's a very large number. And as we've said before, the danger of these breaches is, even if you've changed your password from one of the other breaches, you probably think you're sitting pretty. But the chances are your email address is still there, your date of birth hasn't changed, your username that you recycle across all these things. So now your updated password, that for most people they only put in, maybe change, I don't know, once every 6 months if you're really good, maybe never if you rely on something else. This is a big deal.
I think it is a big deal because it takes hackers that opportunity. Maybe, like you say, they haven't got your password, but they've got your email. They've got more information about you, and then if they get another hack, they get a bit more information about you. They start putting all that together. They can do a lot more social engineering. they can start doing a lot more to understand who you are, and then obviously how they're going to attack you or try and do some force resets. Would they then go after your email provider and try and hack them? It just gives them more options, more data, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, they try and spin this, the researchers or in the journal, quite nicely by saying the only silver lining here, because it's all bad, is that we're only exposed briefly, but that doesn't fill me with confidence. It takes time to download 16 billion items, I'm sure, but at the same time, these guys are pretty cunning,
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think, like I said, they're just trying to draw a picture, aren't they, of what you look like. So this doesn't sit well with me.
No, it's a worry, because the chances are, if you ever go to the website Have I Been Pwned, that there's certainly some of my old passwords and things out there.
Yeah, agreed. Same.
And this is the worry, isn't it? It doesn't matter how careful you are. If the company you're providing the data with isn't careful, then that's how these things get out there.
Yep. No, I completely agree with you.
So that's depressing. Something else that's depressing is Apple's advertising record recently. Have they actually released an advert recently that's been good?
They are struggling, aren't they? They've made some missteps.
So I didn't even see this one. So we had the controversy, obviously, after the massive squashing of all the stuff into an iPad, and then we had the Apple Intelligence mess-ups with saying it was going to do all this stuff for you, and portraying their users as dumb and getting away with work because they're not working very hard, and lazy Mother's Day presents or Father's Day presents or whatever it was. There's been a whole sequence, a catalogue of disasters, really. And this one looks no better. So this was a advert that was targeted at children to come up with a presentation to get them to buy you a Mac.
To get your parents to buy you a MacBook. I'm curious to know why they've pulled it. It doesn't sound great. It doesn't sound very Apple, but equally I was like, well, okay, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt here. They're basically doing a lecture to show somebody how to make a PowerPoint presentation. I don't know. It didn't sound great. It didn't sound very Apple to me. So it didn't sound good on the outset. But I was surprised it got pulled so quickly.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't up for very long at all. It's been marked as hidden. I'd quite like to have seen it. If I'd been a bit quicker with this story, I would have liked to have watched the video.
But I wonder what's happened. And equally, I wonder, what do they do to sign off on their adverts? Do they not think about some of these things? Do they not show it to a wide enough audience? I don't know. There's nothing secretive in here. Why wouldn't they share this wider than what they normally would?
My feeling with a lot of this stuff at the moment is it's the Emperor's new clothes. In the same way that we have the Emperor's new clothes with Trump, I think we have a we can do no wrong attitude from Apple executives. And they just see things and they're like, yeah, that's what we do. It's cool. Crack on. And they approve it and off it goes.
Yeah, okay. I can see that.
And it's really not good. I mean, I'm going to talk about a software misadventure later on my trip. But every time I pick up a piece of Apple hardware, with the possible exception of my phone at the moment, I'm just reassured by what an amazingly well-made device it is. Things don't break generally anymore. We're well past the awful keyboards, all that kind of stuff. The displays are reliable. The batteries are good. It feels very well built. They don't feel like they're going to come apart in your hands. The displays are solid, but just the cracks are beginning to show, not surprisingly, in the software, in the marketing, in the services, in the pursuit of profit at the cost of developers, blah blah blah. I mean, this is stuff frequent listeners of the podcast know we go on about a lot, but this is just another symptom of that, I think.
Yeah, sadly, I think you're right.
I have put a story in here mostly because I'm in Finland, I think. So this was a little post that I saw on Mastodon from Ben Royce, and documents the first ever meeting of Bill Gates, creator of Microsoft, and Linus Torvalds, creator of Linux. I just think it's incredible that they're now they're well into their 50s, aren't they, the pair of them, if not beyond in the case of Bill Gates. It's amazing it's the first time they've met. Yeah,
I was blown away by this, surely. I know they're, to some degree, competitors, but equally, I'm amazed they've never met each other. They've never, certain paths have never crossed. I just find that completely bonkers to me.
So the reason it's local to here is Linus Torvalds wrote Linux when he was at the University of Helsinki down the road from me. So this is quite a nice sort of bit of synchronicity for me. In some ways, all right, Bill Gates was the richest man in the world for a while and obviously still doing all right. Windows subsystem for Linux is a thing. Linus got there, didn't he?
Yeah. Got there in the end. But it's amazing they've never met, they've never engaged, they've never physically crossed paths. I just find that bonkers.
Yeah, it's incredible. Anyway, it's a nice little picture. Red is obviously the colour to wear on one side, and black is the colour to wear on the other side. I don't know if that's the Linux guys and the Windows guys in that picture, but yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, agreed.
Moving on. Also in the news, if you live in the EU, you may be finding new paperwork in the box that comes with your iPad and your iPhone. In the EU, across the European Union now, you're going to get little energy labels in the same way we do for light bulbs and things like that across. I mean, we have them in the UK as well. I don't think this is coming to UK devices at this point. But they're rated A to being most efficient, G to being least efficient on battery life, performance, repairability, blah, 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 stuff like this. And, Apple score a B, not an A, which surprised me slightly.
Wait till you scroll down and look at the iPad.
Ooh.
iPad 11-inch M4 Wi-Fi is a G. M3 Wi-Fi G. So the iPads are Gs and their phones are Bs. So it's pretty bad.
Yeah, reading the article, there was a little bit of self-judgment by Apple here, what they put forward, rather than it going to some destructive testing, something or other. So that's interesting. They've marked themselves so badly as well as that sort of rating.
It's not great, is it? I'm really disappointed with the iPad, to be fair, because I love that device. I'm a bit sad to see.
There was a Marcus Brownlee video on an Android tablet this week, the new OnePlus tablet, and the battery on the OnePlus has a 12,000 milliampere battery, and they're claiming a 2-year, once it's switched off, standby life. And my iPad would never do that.
No, not at all. There's not a hope, especially running the iPad OS beta that's currently out, because it's not good.
I can watch the battery tick down on this iPad's a few years old now. That it's helping me do my screen sharing this week. But it begins to vanish quite quickly.
Yeah, it's quite worrying, isn't it?
In stark contrast to my Mac, which doesn't appear to use battery ever.
Well, I think we discussed this the other week, didn't we? I think I said it's amazing how the Mac is so much better than the iPad, but yet the iPad was heralded as the battery champion when they first brought the iPad out, and the Mac was abysmal next to it. The Mac has definitely, leapfrogged it in huge, just a massive leapfrog. I never worry about my MacBook's battery. I am constantly plugging my iPad in.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. I mean, I have travelled not bringing a power adapter for my Mac because I know it'll just last.
Wow. Okay, that's a statement.
Yeah, it's true. I certainly couldn't do that with my phone or my iPad. Moving on. A new feature in iOS 26. We've had AirDrop as Mac users for quite some time. Other alternatives have not been allowed because Apple has decreed that this can't be the case, so developers have quite often had to come up with their own protocols sharing thing. I've used on Linux and Windows a thing called Local Send, which works really, really well. It lets you send lots of things, files, folders, photographs. You can use it as a clipboard, all the rest of it. It's not quite as seamless as AirDrop. AirDrop occasionally doesn't work all that well either. Rarely. I mean, it is normally quite reliable. But apparently, in the iOS 26 beta, there's an API to let third-party apps build their own AirDrop alternatives directly in, so this is good.
I'm amazed Apple have done this. I know the EU were asking for it, but Apple have actually done it. I just can't believe it.
Yep, it's a good thing. Things like Wi-Fi Aware, which sounds fantastic actually. The thing is, this is table stakes, isn't it? All devices should be able to broadcast themselves. When did we have Bonjour from Apple, which was an open source protocol?
Yeah, I think that dates all the way back to very early incarnations of macOS. I'm going to say at least 10.2, if not earlier.
I would agree. It's been around a long time. And in fact, I think Hewlett-Packard use it quite extensively in the printers, so you can discover printers on networks.
Yeah, it might have been the foundation for AirPrint, to be fair.
Yep, I think so. Briefly back to AI, and apparently, speaking of Perplexity AI, Apple is considering whether they should buy them.
It's quite interesting, and Perplexity isn't an AI brand I know a huge amount about, but I did spot its Lewis Hamilton's sponsor more recently right on the top of his helmet. So when you've got the camera above his head in the car, you just see Perplexity written on his helmet, and it's quite interesting that Apple have been discussing this. Surely they've got to have considered this, given their, when they were last September, when everything was going bad, and they'd advertised all these features and they couldn't deliver them. They must have looked at a whole bunch of companies to acquire.
I mean, this is a rumour. We don't know that this is the case, but yeah, why wouldn't you? When Apple Intelligence launched and it was as bad as it was, which again, as I said at the top of the show, that may actually turn out to be a positive thing, not a negative thing. If the bubble bursts on this, the fact that you've squandered lots of money on Copilot branding, Perplexity branding, and all the rest of it, and you can just quietly sweep it under the rug, as Apple kind of have done.
Yep.
But you know, if Perplexity have a decent LLM that's been trained on lots of things, that they can pay off the right people, that it hasn't stolen a load of copyright, 14 billion again is kind of pocket change for Apple. Maybe now would be the time to get in and do it before this company's worth 100 billion, 200 billion.
I'm amazed Apple have not made an acquisition in this space. Normally they buy stuff ahead of time, but
I think
I'm just amazed they haven't done it.
I think it shows a lack of confidence in the AA market and a lack of realization from Apple of how big these things were going to become. If they were normally skating to where the puck was going to be, they'd have been there, and they certainly haven't been with AI.
Yeah, I think that is very fair, mate.
Yeah, it's a bit sad, but again, I'm just wondering where this goes. You know, it's not just me being cynical Colin or whatever the right thing would be. I read an article about how the last big game changer in the world of technology was the iPhone, and there hasn't been one since, and that was in 2007. And what's happening is that the tech is becoming entrenched in the same way that the railroads were and all the rest of it. The big innovations aren't happening. You're now getting incremental improvements, which, when we look at the evolution of the iPhone, is certainly the case. And if LLM proves to be as useless as it is, then maybe this is the end of that as well. Because either developers will go away because they're not needed anymore because they'll be replaced by AI, or you won't need all this interest and excitement in developing for AI because it's going to go away. So developers, which is, you know, what lots of kids these days are told they want to do when they leave school,
Yep.
It's a dodgy job, isn't it?
It is, but we've got to invent new things. You know, I think it's still worth in being a developer for a while, but are we going to need less of them in 50 years' time? 100%.
It's an interesting way of looking at things, and I think I'll pull that article out and we'll have a proper discussion about it next week, because I think it needs more time than we can give it here. But yeah, interesting.
Okay.
Moving on, Microsoft up to their old tricks. Apparently they're blocking Google Chrome through its family safety feature. So if you've switched on some sort of parental controls, which I know nothing about in Windows, I can't believe they're very good. Maybe that's not me not being fair. They're certainly not great on Apple platforms because they're very unreliable.
Microsoft's are no better or worse. I think in some ways worse just because I'm not really in that ecosystem. All parental controls drive me around the twist, whether it's PlayStation, Microsoft or other.
I think that's fair. Anyway, they're blocking Chrome. It's not like they like it anyway. They want you to just use Edge. They don't want you to install Firefox or Chrome or Vivaldi or any of these other browsers. Edge should be fine for everybody. And anyway, this article in The Verge, you're not getting your Chrome if you've got parental control switched on. And this has been 2 weeks. So they're obviously in no rush to fix this.
Why would you rush? Why they've got no motivation to rush this, have they? Like, we want people to use Edge. People aren't using Edge. Therefore, we stop the competitor from working.
I suppose it's just particularly Microsoft of them, though, isn't it?
It's 100% very Microsoft.
And last but not least for the news, do you want a new phone, Chris?
Do I want a new phone? Yeah,
I
do this year because my son wants my old one, so I do want a new phone.
Oh, that's cool, because there's a new one coming to the market. It might just have your name to it. So it's a bit of a gaudy colour, but this is the Trump T1. Fancy it?
No. I don't know any more about it, but it's gold for a start, which is probably not something I would purchase. It looks odd. It looks like somebody's just taken elements of various other phones and mushed them into one in a big Photoshop. So
this is Donald Trump's phone brand. It may launch with an MVNO as well. You may get a carrier with it too. That's still to be decided. But let's not call it vaporware, but this is going to be $499. It's going to run Android, and it's allegedly going to be made in the USA, which I don't see how it can be because they haven't got any of the facilities to make a device even like this. I think this is nonsense, frankly. It reminds me slightly of the Escobar phones. Do you remember those?
Yeah, it does. Is the president allowed to release a phone? Like, is that allowed?
Well, if you recall, before Donald Trump, all presidents used to give up all their business interests and move, whereas he is able to, get money for charging for dinners, to have questions with him as part of his Bitcoin venue. He's allowed to do this kind of thing. He's allowed to short the stock market by saying tariffs are going to change. Thankfully, he's a very honest and straight up dude, and this phone here, I think, just shows that he's willing to commit to make America great again, and make a phone say a phone's been made in America when it's not. And some of the stats on this, it's a big AMOLED, It's 120 hertz refresh rate. It's going to have a 50 megapixel camera, 16 megapixel selfie camera, 5,000 milliamp hour battery, USB-C, headphone jack, and on Android 15. I'm not sure how much of this I believe. I mean, if you can get all that in a phone for $499, fair enough. But
the spec sounds very good.
I don't believe it's going to be a thing, though. I mean, not at that sort of level.
I think that's the question, isn't it? Is this actually going to come to market? When they say it is at the price with the specs, that's a big question.
And made in America.
Yeah, I'm curious on that one.
So I think this is just fascinating, but if you want a really gold phone, and for anybody that doesn't remember, Escobar was Pablo Escobar's son, the drug dealer, Pablo Escobar, who gold-plated a couple of phones and sent them to reviewers to try and scam people out of their money. So Marcus Burnley got one, a couple of other reviewers got them. The Gold Leaf was a very poor job. They did an iPhone and a Samsung Galaxy Fold. And they were total vaporware, so people were ordering these things and not getting phones in the post, even though, I mean, it was an amazing thing. It's worth seeking out Marquez's video on the Escobar thing. But, yeah, gold phones, I think it's not a great look.
Completely agree. I thought there's much more to say.
Should we do a car corner?
Let's do it.
Car corner that only has a bike in it, so that's worked well. I'm beginning to think we should have called it vehicle corner.
Your transportation area.
Mobility mile, I don't know.
Maybe we shouldn't name things.
Yeah, we're not good at it, are we? Somebody that should be allowed to name stuff, though, are Van Moof's co-founders. So, obviously, when McLaren bought them out, as we talked about in this podcast, that the Van Moof brand went to McLaren, or McLaren something. It's not just McLaren, it's like McLaren.
Is it like applied or... I can't remember it, but it wasn't just McLaren, was it?
Yeah, the car maker's parent brand.
Yeah.
Anyway, Van Moof have designed a bike for rally, that good old-fashioned British brand, which I don't think are British anymore, actually. They're owned by somebody else. But I think these are quite solid-looking bikes. Very Van Moof looking, actually.
They do. They look Van Moof, but it's slightly different. And I think it looks quite good. I like it.
I like it too. It's got the same sort of integral frame and battery type stuff that's built into Van Moof. I can't see. It's certainly got a rear light built in. That's one of the things I like most about my bike, is it has lights built into the frame. I don't need any sort of accessories on top of it. Nice sort of clean look a little more rugged than Van Moof's. My Van Moof is very much a street bike. You know, this looks more like a hybrid for going up hills and things like that too. Fair play. Good that sort of design sensibility is making its way around.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's great to see the Van Moof people carrying on, I think, because it does feel like they were onto something.
Yeah, I agree, and I like Rally as a brand. My first couple of bikes were Rallys. I had a Rally Grifter when I was a very, very young boy, which sadly got run over by a truck, and I was very sad, but it was cool. It looked a bit like a chopper. It had 3 gears. I loved that bike to bits, so I have fond memories of Rally.
I had a Rally Grifter as well. There you go.
There you go. There you go. Look at that. There's something we didn't know we had in common, Chris.
There we go. Yeah, there we go.
Shall we do some media?
Yeah, why not? And this first one, no spoilers.
Of course, no spoilers. So, as listeners and viewers may know, Chris and I are big fans of Race Across the World. The race that starts in one country and ends in another, 6 stages and many thousands of miles later. The most recent season came to a stop 2 weeks ago, I think, in the UK. We haven't talked about it since, so I thought it was just worth bringing up. I thought it was a fantastic final.
We can talk about the final, so I thought you were going to talk about the reunion afterwards.
No.
It was amazing. The final was so good, and even up until the last second, you didn't know who was going to win because they'd cut it so well together. I thought it was really well done. The editing on that show is really good.
Yeah, editing and graphics are both good. I thought they were very engaging teams. I think they were within 4 hours of each other from the team that won.
It was close.
Which is incredible after whatever it was, 40 plus days across 3 countries, with the stops built in as they go. What a terrific program.
I'm a bit sad it's gone away. I'd love it to be on all the time.
Well, what I've learned is there's a Race Across the World Finland while I was here, because it happened to be on the TV the other night when I was watching it. I almost started watching it, but I couldn't understand a word they were saying.
Oh yeah, that could be a problem. Subtitles.
But, well, not on the hotel TV.
Yeah.
But what is interesting is that format has obviously been very successful for the BBC, and they've sold it around the world.
Why wouldn't they? It's a great format. It just works. The whole concept works, and it's so simple. It's really good.
Yeah. Another concept that works, is simple, and has been sold around the world is Taskmaster, because there is a Taskmaster Holland, a Taskmaster Australia, and a Taskmaster New Zealand, off the top of my head. But the most recent series is ongoing in the UK. Have you been watching this one, season 19?
Yeah, not 100% up to date, but pretty close. And my kids and I have thoroughly enjoyed it. It's really good. It's back to its form, which I think we've discussed a bit before.
Yeah, this is right back up there. The last season was a dip. This is as good a season as we've ever had, I think.
100%. It's fantastic. It's just, again, so well done. They've got the right set of people doing it. It's really good. The whole thing is just gelling really well.
Yeah, the 5 comics that they have, or 4 comics in a media celebrity, Matthew Bain and Jason Mantzoukas are just they're phenomenal. As is Stevie Martin and Fassi Al Ghuri and Rosie Ramsey. What a great quintet they are.
Yeah, it just works, doesn't it? The dynamic works really well.
Yeah, brilliant. Enough superlatives on that. Do you want to hear about a Bond film?
Yeah, I think you're going to watch one of my favourite ones.
This is one of your favourite ones. When did you last watch it?
Probably about a year ago.
Okay. So I watched, as part of my ongoing Bond season, The Man with a Golden Gun. And I'm going to start by saying something that you may not like then, if this is one of your favourites. The Bond with the worst score.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
It's dreadful. Lulu singing The Man with the Golden Gun is almost fingernails across my soul. It was so bad.
Okay, I wouldn't disagree with that. I think I'm fondly remembering it because it was just on TV a lot when I was a kid, and so I watched it a lot, and there's probably more nostalgia in it for me. But I've always liked this one.
Yeah, I thought I did until I watched it again, and there's a couple of questionable decisions in it. One of which is to bring the American sheriff character from the last movie into this one, who's basically racist. The way he describes some of the nationals inside of Thailand,
it's not good.
Whereas I think some of that could have been, in the earlier films, could have said to be of its time, the way that Connery treated women, and the way that bringing that below the Mason-Dixon line, probably old-fashioned, slightly unfair stereotyping, into a mainstream film of that caliber at that point was questionable. He's meant to be the comic relief. He's not that funny.
He's an odd character, isn't he? Just generally an odd character, I think. And just happens to be looking at a car whilst on holiday that James Bond steals to catch the baddie.
Why would he be in a car showroom looking at an American car? Why was the car in the car showroom full of petrol when they were able to chase them? There's too many questions here. Christopher Lee as the bad guy, I quite like. He's not given a lot to do. He's really not given a lot to do. Christopher Lee is very watchable. I'll watch him in almost anything.
He's fantastic. I love him in this.
He's a proper classic British actor, and he is good at this. But genuinely, if you go back and watch it again, look at the amount of lines that he's actually given. It's almost nothing.
Yeah, it's almost nothing. But what I quite like with this one is you've got a baddie, and he's got his sidekick, who we're probably going to get onto, and he lives on an island that's got some cool tech. I just think that premise is quite cool. You haven't got your usual baddie that's got a zillion henchmen, and Bond's got to dispatch all the henchmen. I just think the concept is quite cool.
Yeah, and in some ways, it shows where it was. This film is as old as me. It was 1974, so the film is as old as me. And they're interested in solar energy because this was the time of the energy crisis in America. So you kind of get a bit of that, and I quite like that. Again, that's entirely illogical the way that's portrayed. They chuck a bad guy and he dies in one of the freezing zones in the thing, and it causes the whole plant to explode. Why don't you put a lid on it then? If it's that likely to blow up. It's Bond. I don't want to analyse it too much, but I thought Moore wasn't as good in this as he was in the first one. I liked the bad guy. I quite liked, some of the chases and stuff like that. The car that grew wings, that was very Bond.
The car that gets wings is awesome.
Yeah.
What about Knick Knack, the faithful henchman, or not so faithful, because he's quite happy if Roger Moore does away with his boss, so he inherits everything.
No, I don't. Yeah, but you've said that with the first killer at the start of it as well. It's low. It's a low point in the series for me. I think it's the worst one so far, and that's saying something.
Makes me sad.
So 40% on the critics' choice, only 55% on the audience, and I'd give it more than that. For me, this is a 30% if it's lucky.
It's about an 80% film for me. But like I said, I think it's more nostalgia than actual quality of film.
I mean, part of it as well is that You Only Live Twice, the Connery one, also set in Japan at that point, had that sort of Eastern influence to it. There's very many overlaps between that and this, I think, for the way the people from those countries are treated and portrayed on the screen. And I don't think a lot of that comes over well. I think it was better portrayed in You Only Live Twice than it was here. It was more respectful of the cultures and the people there.
Yeah, okay. I wouldn't disagree with some of that.
And that's in a film where they made Sean Connery look Japanese. That's how much worse this one is than that.
Yeah, okay.
Shall we move on and do some games?
We just didn't touch on, though, how cool is it that you can make a gun out of a pen and a lighter and a pack of cigarettes or whatever it is?
So cool. Games. We don't have a lot in games because I haven't been around to play any, and I suspect are you even playing your Switch too?
Bit Mario Kart, and I've replayed most of Quake 1.
At some point you're going to have to give us an update on Commandos because you were so looking forward to that.
I know, and I've been rubbish.
Upcoming, apparently there's going to be an Xbox handheld. It feels like Microsoft going, wait, what? Handheld gaming's a thing now? Oh, we've only had the Switch and the Steam Deck and the Asus ROG Ally, and maybe we should get in on that. And now they're going to try.
It's no brainer, isn't it? They've got all the elements. They've got the store. They run on PC hardware. This just feels like they've missed the boat here.
I think what this shows is that Windows is bad for gaming. Hear me out. The Steam Deck is a very underpowered device that's managed to get 3-4 hours of play out of Windows initially games and worked really well. Asus released a ROG Ally which ran on Windows and tried to do the same thing as the Steam Deck. Nobody bought one. The performance was terrible, even though because they ran on Windows. When they released the Steam software compatible one, it's selling better and got a bit of buzz. So this is, to me, is Microsoft just panicking and trying to get something out there quickly.
Feels like panic very late though. They should have had more of a plan for this because this is a market they could easily make an indent in, surely.
Yeah, I mean, Xbox gamers, I presume, are very loyal. This is exactly the kind of the device they've been clamouring for because they've been enviously looking at the Steam Deck and the Switch. Okay, well done. You've got a Microsoft one now.
Yeah, it's not a device I would buy, but there are people that would buy this device.
Yeah, and then probably install Steam software on it instead because it'll be better.
I'm amazed they haven't done more Xbox Live stuff for this kind of console.
Yeah, doesn't make a lot of sense. Last but not least in games, Call of Duty Black Ops 7 has been announced, and I'm not ready for this. Black Ops 6 still seems new to me, and we shouldn't have a Black Ops game. It should be a Modern Warfare game, so I'm a bit disappointed with this.
I don't understand any of the Call of Duty stuff.
The really weird thing about this is games of this nature, first-person shooters, generally do badly when they leave the modern era, so people want the weapons of now, for want of a better word. When they start being Second World War, First World War, whatever, they don't sell well. When they start being futuristic, they don't sell well, because you may as well go and buy Doom. And this is them trying to go back into the future again. So this isn't going to do so well, I don't think.
Right, okay, that kind of explains a bit more the time, the chronology, I guess, of what to expect. Now, I quite like the World War II stuff, but maybe that's just me. But I can see why people wouldn't like it for multiplayer games because you want stuff of today. You want it to be fairly quick. You want to understand it. Whereas I guess if you're going for future stuff or legacy stuff, it's just not as engaging for online. It's probably better for campaign play.
Yeah, and I think to do the nostalgia piece is fine to a certain degree. Like Battlefield doing World War One, they actually did it in quite a sensitive way in some senses, talking about the trenches and the death and and how awful that was as a war, while still making a game about shooting people. That let's not lose sight of that. But they had to make all these sort of adjustments to give people the kinds of guns and things that they wanted. They wanted submachine guns, not really a thing in the First World War, so they had to bend history quite savagely to do that, and that annoys people.
Yeah, either do it right or don't, kind of thing.
Exactly. Anyway, it's going to be a thing in the next few months.
Okay.
Should we do a main show?
Let's do it.
I have nothing to show for this particularly, so I'm trying to find our wake from sleep thing to put back up. I've gone away from it. So I'm travelling on a beta, and I know you went to London yesterday on a beta. Do you want to tell me how you
on a very battery hungry beta?
Do you want to tell me how you got on travelling to London with a beta?
Yeah, so look, I go to London all the time, but I was going with some friends, and I wanted to make sure, my phone was going to make it because I needed to buy tickets, to pay for things, to use maps, look up things, and I had zero confidence that my phone was going to make it through the day because generally it hasn't since installing iOS 26. So I took a battery pack. Other than that, it was fine. My phone, though, is running quite warm at the moment, just generally. And also, it's the hottest day of the year in London. So I took a battery pack. That solved my problem. I charged it when I was on the train. Even first thing in the morning, I just thought I'd top it up just to keep on top of it. And then topped it up later in the day. It was fine, but the Beta is very battery hungry. Everything else worked fine for me. I had no other travel nightmares other than just battery drainage is insane on the Beta, and it normally is.
Yeah, so all that plus international travel, basically.
And that's what you've been doing.
And that's what I've been doing. So I foolishly installed the Beta, and once again, folks, don't install the Beta on your main device. Only ever do it on a backup device. Don't do it on your...
Unless you're willing to put up with some pain and upset.
Yeah, and that's fine. So my travel to Finland involved leaving from Swansea, driving to Bristol, changing in the Netherlands and Schiphol airport, and then going to Helsinki. The first part went fine because I could stick my phone on charge in the car because it's got a wireless charger. So it's a 2-hour drive from Swansea to Bristol. Yeah, got to Bristol with not a lot of battery, checked in, went through security, did all that kind of stuff. I was down to 50%, within 2 hours. I wasn't even using it all that much. I mean, and my phone was toasty. It was a problem. Fine. Got on the plane, put it in airplane mode, landed at the other side, still had, 50-ish%. So that was fine. Topped it up in Amsterdam. Used the airport Wi-Fi. Didn't think about it all that much. All was good. Hopped on the plane, landed in Finland. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And the phone was doing this really weird thing. This is on roaming, and my contract allows roaming, where I could see in the toolbar up near the clock 5G just flickering really, really quickly, on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off. And it kept coming up with a warning saying unable to activate cellular data connection, which, having roamed into the Netherlands, really gave me pause. What has happened here in the intervening period. Phone is still super hot. Couldn't connect. I tried to get an eSIM, so I've used this before all over the world. Buy an eSIM because I figured maybe it's a problem with my roaming connection. Activated the eSIM while on airport Wi-Fi, and it did exactly the same thing. 5G just flickering continuously, unable to activate phone connection.
Is that because that version of iOS isn't certified for that country on that network? I don't know.
Surely there's Finnish developers rocking around with iOS 26.
Yeah, no, you'd have thought so.
So I don't know if it's the Netherlands is in the EU, so it's not an EU thing. So I didn't know what the hell was going on. I felt a bit like I was in Race Across the World, frankly.
Wow, okay.
Just because suddenly I'm in a country with a foreign language. Thankfully, they speak more English here, but the signs aren't English. There's far more umlauts and things than I'm comfortable with, frankly, for trying to pronounce stuff. Traveling on a train to a hotel that I don't know where it is. So I downloaded offline maps, and I'll put a link in the show notes to how you can do that if you want to, while I was on airport Wi-Fi. And that gave me a vague idea where I was going. But it was not fun. Suddenly I've got a phone that is effectively useless to me.
Yeah, I have used downloaded offline maps before. I think it's quite cool. It can be annoying in the car because it keeps flashing up. You're on the offline map. You're on the live map. You're on the offline map. Okay, that's good. A clever idea, though. I wouldn't have probably thought to do that in a pinch because it's not a common, obvious thing to do, is it?
No, that's why I've put the link in the show notes how to do it, in case you ever need to do that while you're on Wi-Fi. Do it, but I hope nobody else is stupid enough to install a Beta on their phone. Anyway, I got to the hotel and I did all the things you're meant to do. I turned it off and on. I turned Wi-Fi off and on. I tried messing around with the mobile connections, home connections. Could I go in and restrict it to 4G instead of 5G? Nothing made any difference. I just continuously got this cannot activate cellular data connection.
Wow. I mean, that's pretty worrying, isn't it? Because what did you do with that?
It was extremely worrying because for the next 4 days I'm in Finland, my conference tickets are on there. I need to navigate to and fro. I need to meet people in venues. Genuinely, I cannot get by without an active cellular data connection on my phone.
Yeah, you need to communicate more than ever.
Absolutely. You're in a foreign place where you've got to catch up with people, you've got to do business, you've got to do this, that, and the other thing, So I found it extremely stressful, and I'm quite neurotic about this stuff at the best of times, but this almost drove me over the edge. I was really on, oh my gosh, what do I do here? So I'm traveling with my iPad, also on a Beta, and I was going to bring my Linux, my framework computer, because I thought, wouldn't it be fun to bring my Linux device back to the home of Linux? And that would be quite a nice sort of round circle in my head for that. But for some reason I thought, no, you're going for work, take your Mac. And I'm so glad I did, because I made possibly the nuclear option, to completely flatten my phone and put it back on iOS 18.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would have rushed to have done that. I don't know what I would have done. I just don't know what I would have done.
What would you have done? I mean, the other option I had was I'll just go and buy a cheap phone and stick my SIM card in it and hope that it's fixed.
That's an expensive way out, though, isn't it? Even a cheap phone would be expensive.
A couple of €100, yeah. Also, I arrived on a Friday evening when everything was shut.
Maybe you're right. So this is what you did. I'm just trying to think. I don't even know what I would do at this point. Would I just try and use my iPad? Maybe, I don't know.
But that depends on Wi-Fi. It's also on iOS 26, so even with a SIM card in it, it's going to have the same problem.
Yeah, fair. Okay. So you blew your phone away.
I blew my phone away. I went and I had to switch off stolen phone protection, which I'd forgotten was a thing. Should you ever, if you're away from home, this is to prevent people from doing exactly what I did, where you've got to indicate you're going to do it. You've got to put in your Apple password. You've got to enter the two-factor authenticator. You've got to flick the toggle to off. It then goes, right, you've got an hour. If this phone restarts or anything odd happens to it in the next hour, this starts again, and you'll have to put in your password and things again.
Wow.
So that was slightly worrying. So I went and bought myself a steadying drink from downstairs, and I wandered around a little bit close to the hotel because I didn't want to get lost. Came back upstairs, flipped off Find My, and then that disabled that. Plugged in a USB-C cable, downloaded from a website called ipsw.me, who have the most up-to-date signed IPS drivers. Thankfully, the hotel Wi-Fi was enough to let me download all 7 gigs of iOS 18.5, and I blew my phone away.
Wow. Okay. And you didn't do this like in the Finder on your Mac. You did all.
You do it in the Finder on your Mac.
Right,
So
okay.
you plug in the phone, but otherwise it would go off and go to Apple's incredibly slow downloady thing. So this is a means of getting around that.
Yeah, I was just looking at this IPSW website because I've not used this before, but it seems to make sense what you're saying here.
Yeah. So yeah. So that was horrifying because there was a couple of thoughts as I was blowing this away. One was I just activated my free conference citywide transportation tickets. So that was €50 that I'd just thrown down the toilet, which was a problem. But thankfully they were free. I just meant I had to buy a ticket myself and I wouldn't be able to claim it back. So that was,
okay.
and that was annoying. There was a couple of pictures that I'd taken as I'd been wandering around that were now gone because they hadn't had a chance to synchronise in the
Yeah, they
cloud.
wouldn't have resynced.
All my credit cards and debit cards are in the wallet and they need to be reactivated, so if they hadn't come back on, that might have been a problem.
Yeah. Did you take physical cards with you?
For once I actually did. I don't always, but
No, I
sometimes.
don't.
Yeah. And last but not least, my Volvo's key is also on my phone.
Yeah. And you normally have to be in my BMW. You have to be in the car with 2 keys to
activate another
one.
So that's gone too. I'm still in Finland, so I don't know what's going to happen with that. The only thing is, I also have it on my watch, and I haven't blown away my watch. My watch now thinks it's not attached to a phone.
I was going to say, is your watch
fine.
grumpy because it can't see the phone?
It's a little grumpy, but it's just saying I'm out of contact with the phone. So
Okay.
I'll repair it when I get back to the house.
Well, yeah, that's a problem for another day, isn't it?
Yeah, but I'm so glad that I decided to bring the Mac, because I wouldn't have been able to do this with a Linux laptop.
Yeah, I guess you can't do it from the phone, can you?
No, you can't. You can't go back to.
You can just
default.
you can just erase,
Yeah.
and it may update to the latest version, but it won't go backwards.
But it's already on the latest version because it's on the beta. And the most annoying thing was, as soon as the phone came back online, and I was really glad that it did, I had visions of me having a brick entirely, and the fact that it worked and it immediately started roaming was a good sign as well. There's a lot to go wrong doing something like this.
Jeez, I wonder now, if you updated it, don't do it, but to iOS 26, whether it would work, because your SIM's now registered in that country and roaming's working, whether it actually work.
I don't see how it could have been the SIM thing, because I downloaded an eRollo local SIM card, eSIM card to it.
Okay.
So it's not the SIM card, it was something in the software stopping it happening.
Wow, I wouldn't have foretold that. I mean, I've travelled before with beta phones and it's been fine, but wow, okay.
But the false sense of security from being in the Netherlands, where everything was working, to then I hopped one country over and everything went boing.
Oh my lordy. Okay. Wow, what a trip. Good job you weren't with your family, because they would have been cheesed off while you were sorting your phone out.
yeah, like I say, I'm neurotic. I had to fix it at that point to the exclusion of all else, and that's a problem. I'm not paying enough attention to what's going on around me, really. I would have been an easy target for a mugger at that point, let's just say that.
Yeah, but a lot of people are when they're flustered. I would be exactly the same.
Yeah, it's a lot at once, isn't it? You've been travelling since 4:30 in the morning, your tech's not working, you've got X, Y, and Z. I'm also glad that I didn't have this Mac on the latest version of the beta either. It's on good old-fashioned, and it ain't changing, baby.
Yeah, that could have been problematic for you, I guess.
Yeah, so there you go. That's a story of my travelling, and if a reminder if ever one was needed, never ever install betas on your primary device unless you're absolutely sure there's going to be no curveball thrown at you.
Exhibit A, Chris holds up his iPhone running iOS 26.
Yeah, well, I was fine when I wasn't doing anything weird either, but there you go. Don't travel.
I'm just going to stay here, I think. I don't need to go anywhere.
There we go. Should we do App of the Week?
We should, but just to highlight, though, I think it's interesting, kind of with both your watch and your phone, that they both need another device. They're neither truly independent, which is interesting because kind of by now you'd have thought Apple may have tackled this, that, oh look, I want to roll it back, I'm on a beta, I want to roll back, because going on the betas is a lot easier now. You don't need a Mac, or you used to have to go onto iTunes and do it, if I remember correctly. So they've done so much on the device, so it's interesting that they haven't done it so you can go backwards. I think that's a misstep, and it's kind of the same with the watch should be, I would have expected by now, 10 years in, the watch would be truly independent.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not at all. That's what you're highlighting, isn't it? Neither are really independent. And it's the same with the iPad. The iPad still needs the Mac if you were going to do the same thing. So I'm surprised they haven't tackled that thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's odd this time I decided to travel with so many devices. I wouldn't normally. I'd normally just chuck my Mac in the bag and off I'd go. But for some reason I decided to bring the iPad with me as well. And I think in the back of my head I had thought, iOS 26, I might try and record the podcast on that. Because that would have been an interesting thing to do. But that would also have been disastrous. And I think the reason I did bring it was, no, don't be silly. There's enough variables here. Just bring a Mac, is reliable, that I'll be able to record the podcast on while I'm here. And I'm so glad I did.
Yeah, I normally pack super light as well. So I normally take as little device as possible. So fair play to you.
Yeah, thanks. A traumatizing experience. I needed a nerve soother that night.
I can understand that. Because what you do, everything's on your phone. You need that for travel so much.
Absolutely everything. And the other thing that's changed in my life is, of course, I've moved to YubiKeys for my authentication and all that kind of stuff. Thankfully, I brought my key with me, or I wouldn't be able to unlock my password app either.
So I often take my YubiKey with me in like a secondary wallet I have with credit cards and things in, and that's saved my bacon a few times.
Yeah, it's weird how plugged into this stuff we are.
Yeah, agreed.
App of the Week.
Let's do it.
Won't be a surprise to anyone after everything I've just talked about. My App of the Week is how to download offline maps on your iPhone. This is a real lifesaver. There's 3 different ways of doing it. Probably worth doing for your local area, but if you're planning to travel, folks, and you're in any doubt at all, download an offline map. It's super helpful. Yeah,
I'd agree with that. To be honest, if you're worried about burning data in the UK or in your home country, you should probably just download the maps where you live and have that localized copy of it. It's quite cool tech. They've actually done a really good job of it.
I'm throwing out there, while I was in the Netherlands, it said, do you want to download cycling directions? Which I know has been coming for a long time at the UK, but I experienced it myself.
Yeah, okay. No, I can understand that.
Thing of the week?
Thing of the week. So mine's a bit different this week. So we went at the last minute to watch Snow Patrol play live round the corner from where we live, and it was fantastic. I've listened to Snow Patrol for 20 years, on and off, and they were doing a live gig, and it was great. And took the whole family. The 4 of us went and watched it, and it was a good family show in an arboretum, so we could sit on chairs, have a bit of a picnic, watch some live music, and then spend an hour and a half in the car park trying to get out on a school night, which was challenging. But it was just great to see Snow Patrol. They were really good live, and a good family evening out that all 4 of us enjoyed. So there you go.
It doesn't look like the biggest venues. It doesn't look like your arena tour.
No, not an arena tour. I have no idea. There were thousands of people in this forest watching them. It was just really good. Not an arena tour. One thing I did learn about Snow Patrol though is they did the song Chasing Cars. I'm going to have to type it in now. And this song was like one of the songs of the decade, which I hadn't realised, and it was one of the most widely played songs here in the UK on radio stations, and was just ridiculously huge. But I don't think I had any idea that it was that big. So there you go.
You didn't know it was that big? It was huge.
I knew it was big, but I didn't think it was that big. So, I can't find the link now. But it was just exponentially huge, and I just think that had passed me by. I'd heard of it. I know a lot of Snow Patrol songs, but I just didn't realise how big that one song was. It was like one of the fastest selling singles ever, and it was just huge. So there you go. I didn't know that.
I did know that. And it was always a feature of, like, I think the early X Factors or that kind of thing, where people would stand up and sing Chasing Cars because it was such a big song.
Oh, okay. I never watched X Factor.
I didn't either. It's just one of those things that was on in the background. I want to say they're a Belfast band that met in Glasgow, something like that.
They were at university in Glasgow, and yes, all very Irish, and they had some Irish support acts which were also fantastic. The whole thing, it was just great to go to a family concert in the heat in this country, just very relaxed, and it was just really good music. So there you go.
For viewers of the video side of things, you can see Chris has had a tweak to the website, so you may notice that already. So well done, Chris. It's looking a lot better. And I think we can call that a show, Chris.
Yeah, I think so. So if anybody wants to get in contact with us, you can go to our website, which I've updated with all the contact details, which is wakefromsleep.com. I know there's the YouTube link. You can go to Apple Podcasts there. But you can also follow Rod on Mastodon. He's at g5maniac at mastodon.scot. He's on Blue Sky, where he's at g5maniac.bsky.social. I am on Mastodon, and I'm at _CGP at mastodon.social. Or you drop us an email, wakefromsleep@protonmail.com.
Talk to you next week, Chris.
Cheers, Rod.